Knock, knock.
Who's there?
It's Danielle.
Hi, Danielle. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me today. Everyone tuning in, we today have another amazing member story. So Danielle's joining us. Joining me, I'm in Ontario. She is in Winnipeg. So she's joining me from a little distance away. And we are going to hear all about your story, Danielle, all about your fitness journey, we like to call it. But there's going to be a whole heap of things in there as well to go along with that. So I'm excited to get into it and learn a little bit more. So some of the member stories that everybody hears, you'll hear that Nikki and I have trained a lot of the people in person that we have on the show. However, Danielle is someone I've never trained in person and never actually even met in person face to face yet. But maybe if I go on a trip to Winnipeg at any time in the future. So this is going to be not unique, but a little different because, it depends on, where we met and how we kind of came to be, connected. So this is going to be a fun story. I guess we can just start with the beginning of your journey. So I'd love to hear just a little bit about kind of your early influences with health and fitness, well-being, nutrition, all the things that fall into that category, and kind of maybe your earliest memories of what impacted your later journey in health and fitness.
Okay, so this is interesting because I would say that my journey with fitness or my relationship with fitness actually didn't start till I was in my early 20s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so before then, I was not an active kid at all. It wasn't something that was really modeled in our house. And, my mom was a stay-at-home mom and she was, busy doing her thing. And my dad worked a lot. And, when he came home, he was pretty much, tired, doing his own thing, not really going out for bike rides. And so I would say, my childhood was a pretty sedentary childhood. And, because of that, and also coupled with the fact that we were basically allowed to eat whatever we wanted. There were really no nutrition rules in my house, which is kind of ironic when I tell you what I do now for a living later on. But and I think that came from, it's not that my parents didn't care, but I think they just wanted us to have whatever we wanted because they grew up in a situation where they did not have everything that they wanted. And they maybe grew up in a situation where, food was a little tight. So when they had the opportunity to give us, then they gave freely. And so you take a sedentary kid eating whatever they want, and that's sort of just a recipe for overweight. And I was a chubby kid, and I think because of that, didn't really feel comfortable moving my body, and just didn't really want to. And I didn't see that modeled as a kid, so didn't really want anything to do with it. And I remember in gym class, being in elementary school and just like hating it. So every year we had these Canada fitness tests that we had to do. So at the beginning of the year and the end of the year, they would make us do like the sit-up test and the long jump and the dreaded like 1 mile run. And that was like the worst part of the year for me. I hated it. And I would fake sick to miss those tests just because I didn't know how to do it. Like, I just didn't know, I had no physical literacy skills. Like I just had no way of doing it. And, coupled with the embarrassment of being the chubby kid, just didn't want to have anything to do with it. And that kind of continued on through childhood and teenage years until I hit in my teens. And then, sort of body image issues came into play and whatever else. And the way that I tried to control my weight was through restricting eating. So, and I know you asked about fitness, but I feel like they kind of go hand in hand. So I'm going to talk a little bit about it now. So when I was in my teen years, I started restricting food, totally like not even thinking like, hey, if I just got some activity in here, that might help the problem too. But again, I think it makes sense because I didn't grow up with it. It wasn't something that was, modeled for me. And so developed kind of a not great relationship with food in my teens that sort of persisted a little bit later on. But then I don't know, somewhere in my 20s, I remember going to university and I can't even remember exactly what it was, But I remember walking to class one day and you had to go through a building where the gym was. And they had like a group fitness schedule up. And I thought, well, maybe I'll try one of those. And I can't exactly remember what it was. And so I ended up joining the gym at the university and just really loved it. Really loved it. And I think then it kind of morphed. My relationship with fitness kind of took a bad turn, not a bad turn, but like, then I started to overuse fitness and over exercise. Right. And just, figured out, hey, if I restrict what I eat and I over exercise, then I'll lose weight. And I did. And that didn't work out later on, because I think that's just a recipe for disaster for metabolism. But and I feel like I'm rambling a bit here. This story is long.
No, not at all. I think that's actually a great pause point, like the introduction of exercise, because it comes to us all in some way, shape, or form, and it's interesting how the inclusivity of exercising in a group attracts a lot of people. For many different reasons. And I think that's such a common story that will resonate with a lot of people, right? It's that initial, and it's funny, I spoke on a podcast recently that I was a guest on about how it's kind of like it can be the doorway in to a lot of other things. And we were talking about how personal training and group fitness, should be supporting each other more, because group fitness is often the entry point. And it's so common for so many people.
Yeah, because there's no way I would have just gone into like a weight room or gone to like a one-on-one trainer. I was such a newbie. It was like, where can I go and kind of hide? And I was definitely the hider in the back, like back row, corner, closest to the door kind of thing. But
we've all been there.
Yeah. So I was at the university for a while. So I was a member of the gym there. And then so I've had sort of formal gym memberships on and off for a while. So after I graduated with my undergrad, I didn't have access to that gym anymore. So then I kind of fell off the fitness wagon for a bit. And then a few years ago, many years ago, probably 20 years ago, there was back when we had VHSs and we could record, there was an aerobic show on TSN called Caribbean Workout, where it was like step classes and weight classes on the beach in Barbados. So I would record those and I would do those. And so I did that for a while, and then fell off the wagon for a little bit and joined other gyms. So it's been sort of like on and off. Like there's been times in my life where I've been really into it and all out, and then other times where I'm not active at all.
Yeah.
But I feel like now I'm at a point where I'm the most consistent that I've ever been, because fitness has a different role in my life now than it did back then.
That is, you could write that down, anyone listening, as the key point. We could end the show now and you'd get a lot of value. We're not going to, but just from that alone, the role it plays in your life makes a big difference. I think just to touch on that a little bit with the in and out, that consistency thing is, I just think that's so common. It's so great to hear, and it's going to resonate with so many people, because your life is seasons, right? Look at your career, look at, like I always think, like, a season is like parenting's a season, right? You don't have kids, then you have kids, and then they're gone. So it's kind of a season, right? Your career does that. You might start a new job, and then you excel, and maybe you really driving in that role in that business, and then you get to a certain point, and then maybe it flattens out a little bit, and you continue, and it's kind of, it plateaus, so to speak, and then maybe you go to something else or go for a promotion. So your life is that kind of, that goes in those seasons, much like the weather. And fitness is like that for a lot of people. And I think it's important to know that that's normal. And I think we all go through that. Like I've been fully immersed in fitness and health for 22 years, and I still go in seasons. So I'd say I'm consistent-ish, but I've been through that. And I'd say how I would see it for me is, I'm kind of in that position where it never is not part of my life, because I'm in it working all day.
Mhm.
But there's times where I'm like, yeah, I don't really want to I don't want to lift any weights. So I'm not going to. So I'm going to
Mhm.
do this instead, or I'm going to do that. So kind of, and I'll get into one type of training or one type of thing, and then I'll do something else. And that's great for my personal development to learn lots of new things and try things, but it just cycles through. And sometimes that means inactivity or a different type of activity. Maybe you're walking more, you're biking more, or, lots of people are working out or exercising and moving outdoors in the summer and not in the gym. So that's really important to know, that it isn't everyone's journey isn't start and then just continue doing it forever, because
Yeah.
everybody does that.
Right. Yeah. And I think the older I get and the wiser I get, like, it's so funny. I wish I had the wisdom I had now when I was 20. There's no way you can get it. Like, age is the only way to get there, I feel like, but except for a few rare people. But yeah, now I realize it's like, it's not an all or none principle. Like, you don't have to work out 7 days a week for an hour every day doing like intense cardio every single day for that to be fitness. And for me, like when I was in my early 20s, that's what it was though, because it was a way to control my weight and it was a way to lose weight. So it was like, and it was all about control. So it was like, if I missed that one day, it was like the end of the world and I felt so down and, I missed a day. So what's the point of doing it tomorrow? Like it was such a total cycle, like a big yo-yo up and down. Whereas now it's like, I missed a day, big deal.
Yep.
I'll just do it again tomorrow, or I'll do it when I do it, like I don't want to force it, because as soon as for me anyway, when you start to force exercise for me or fitness for me, it's not fun and I don't want to do it.
Yep.
I won't.
And that's it. You find something you enjoy. This is one of my favorite, and people always joke when they say to me, don't you get sick of answering the same questions all the time, like social media and in person on sessions, and in any conversation I have, when anybody knows what I do for a job, is what's the best exercise for insert blank? And it's always my favorite question to answer. I'm like, there isn't one. Like, do something you enjoy doing, because it's like, to your point, if you don't like doing it, you're not going to do it. And then you're not going to get any results anyway. The only people that need to dial down to be that specific with exercise prescription, from my side as a coach, is someone that is in a performance environment. So an athlete, a bodybuilder, someone who's competing for something, has an end goal that is very specific, because most people don't. They think they have an end goal that's specific, but really people just want to improve their longevity, move more, be healthy, don't get out of breath if you have to run for the bus. Like, it's so generic when we dial down to it. And it's also similar, you mentioned weight loss a lot, and people come with those things, they want to lose weight, and I'm like, that's great. I'm like, but that's not really the reason. Like, there's another reason behind that, right? And that's how we, the motivational interviewing comes in, so we can dial down to those things to realize they are fairly generic, and really you just need to move more and be active, and you need to do something you enjoy, because guess what? People don't do things they don't enjoy.
Yes. And being realistic too, like those athletes, like that's their job.
Yep.
They have the time to do that. I had time when I was 20 and didn't have kids and a family to, work out twice a day for an hour. Like, I just don't have that time anymore. And I have to be okay with that, because there's other things in my life that fill that time. So, case in point, I missed my workout this morning. I
wasn't going to say anything.
Because my son is having, he was a great sleeper. And then, I don't know, all of a sudden he's waking up in the middle of the night and crawling into bed with us and kicking and twisting, and he's getting great sleeps, but we're not. So I was like, I just can't today. Too tired. And it's okay. I'll be there tomorrow. So
absolutely, it's okay. And for the record, if you don't have we have children about the same age, so for everyone listening, the worst sleep partners in history are 4-year-olds. They stay still for 7 seconds, and even when they're fast asleep. So yeah, once we played sleepover, I'm like, out, never again. She's like, do you want to play sleepover? I'm like, I will sleep on the floor in your bedroom while you sleep in your bed, because it will be more comfortable.
Yeah.
Not an ideal sleep partner, that's for sure. I don't even like Nikki moves around too much. I'm like, just stay over there. Stay over there. the way. So yes, it's so true. And things get in the way. And I think it's important to say, because this is something that goes around in the industry a lot. And, people will see it on social media and hear it, is that, well, we all have the same 24 hours in a day and you can make time, blah, 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 blah. To go back to your point, Danielle, when you said you don't have time, I think that's an important thing, because it's about priorities. And
Yes.
it's so important. So, technically, I guess we do have time, but it's about what you do with that time. And that's what's important, right?
I'm really glad you brought that up, because I have thought about that before. And I've just like really recently, that's like been a really big light bulb moment for me. No, there is time there. Everybody has the same amount of time available to them. It's exactly like you said, it's what you prioritize, right? And what you can fit in realistically. I'm not willing to prioritize, or I am willing to prioritize sleep now. I never was. Like, I would stay up, and nope, not anymore. So sleep is important for me. I'd like to say fitness is up there too, right? I'm up in the morning sometimes and, doing it. So, but that shifts too, right? Like your priorities on a day-to-day basis morph.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, well, you missed some sleep. So you caught up in some sleep. And let's be honest, a workout on a poor night's sleep, really, what benefit? You're probably not getting any stronger. You're not doing any personal bests. You're not getting the best workout ever. So wait till tomorrow and you've caught up on your sleep. So again, it's about priority. So yes, you did have the time. And I think that's a good acceptance tool for people, right? Say, I did have the time to do that. However, I chose not to because I'm going to make good of it elsewhere. Or maybe I'll go for a walk, or I'll do something where I don't have to test my physical boundaries so much, right? And let's be clear, going for a walk might test some people's physical boundaries, but not yours. And I say that from, because I watch you move and exercise all the time. So I'm pretty confident that walking is within your physical boundaries. But yeah, it's so important. It's about where you put that. And to your point, if you're an athlete, or you decide to do a bodybuilding competition, or you decide to, whatever it is, compete in something, then your priorities shift. Then you're like, okay, so I need to pull back on something else so I can get a second workout in. Or like me, I have to sacrifice my enjoyment sometimes for going for a run, because I decided to do a Spartan race, and I figured I should probably try running for the first time in 5 years before I go run on an obstacle course. So do I like running? No, I hate it with a passion. However, I went out and did it. So I sacrificed a little bit of joy in my training, because I wasn't looking forward to it. I didn't really enjoy it when I was doing it. But again, I had to prioritize and say, is it going to be better to do this 3 or 4 times before I run a race, so I don't suffer drastically on the race, that I know I can get through it. My body's going to get a little bit of conditioning. However, I did leave it a bit late, starting 2 weeks before. But so not an example to anybody, but welcome to me and how my brain works. So yeah, priorities are important, and it's such an important thing for people to hear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And definitely forgiveness too, though. Like, just, it's okay. Forgive yourself if you don't always make it. Like, you always have the opportunity the next day, right? Tomorrow's another day.
Yeah.
Start again.
I made a post a while back that some of you listening might have seen. If you follow our social media channels, if you don't, shame on you. You can go do that. A post about brushing your teeth, and how all of us have once upon a time gone to bed without brushing our teeth because you were drunk, or you forgot, or you were somewhere you didn't have a toothbrush, or and we won't get into why that might happen, but there's many things that affect that. But what do? You don't get up and not brush your teeth the next day because you didn't brush them the day before. You just brush them again and you get on with it, because your teeth aren't going to fall out after once. And my point was that exercise is the same. It goes in cycles. Just move. Sometimes you won't move as much, sometimes you move more. And another analogy is the whole the punctured tire on your car, right? You have one punctured tire, you just deal with that one punctured tire, and then you carry on with your day. You don't slash the other 4. And that's kind of the attitude that people have towards exercise, right? Is, well, I didn't work out, so now I'm going to binge eat for a week, not train because I missed one day, and then regret it. And and you get in that poor cycle. So it's important to have that forgiveness and just open your eyes and have a bit more of an objective view on the role that exercise plays in your life. I've written that down about 3 times here, so I'm going to steal that and start make some posts about it. So thanks for some inspiration, for some content.
I love the analogies. I really do. I love the analogies. But it is weird. Like, it's so interesting. Like, the human mind is so interesting. Like, what is it in your mind that's like, I didn't work out today, so fuck it, I'm going to eat this cheesecake and just do that. Like, just like the downward spiral, and how quickly it happens. And for me, like I have been there so many times where it's just like, well, screw it, whatever. The whole thing is lost. Why? You know?
Great question. My belief is it comes from what we'll call it the media, social media, magazines, whatever it is, the world, society, the story that all of those outlets tell us about the role that fitness should play in our lives. That's what I personally think is the issue. And that's what hopefully this podcast is doing, is opening people's eyes. It isn't that. And I didn't articulate it as well as you, but the role was the role that it plays in your life is important. And I think that's why when people listen to what's out there and what they absorb, is that then it starts to affect those things. So it's that all or nothing mentality. And sometimes that's okay, depending on who you are and the position you're in. But if it doesn't work for you, it worked for someone else, that's okay. And that's a general rule for life. I think that's the issue, is people are not positioning it where it needs to be and not building it as a habit into their life for the right reason. And it sounds like that's something that you started to do through adulthood. So I'd love to kind of get back. We went off on a bit of a tangent, but that's what this podcast is all about. And I love those because it brings out, we wouldn't have got this content creation ideas down here if we hadn't. So selfishly. So obviously, and it's interesting, and we'll go back to this a little bit, but we had a very, very similar experience. And I didn't know this till today, a very similar experience as a kid into like teenage years. And then we came across exercise in a very different way, but we got to that point in a very similar journey. And I had the no nutrition rule household as well. So that was that. And we also grew up at a very similar time. We both kind of were raised in that time where everything came in a box and we had a microwave.
Yep.
So nutrition kind of went out the window a little bit in that generation. I think anyone that grew up in like 80s was like, oh yeah, I just got fed out of a cardboard box and it went in the oven, because that's what everybody did then. And it's changed a little bit, thankfully. It's still available, but changed. So in your 20s, you as you said, you kind of went through that, that process of maybe not the best habits, and then kind of into more of like a gym environment, and I guess back to kind of group-based fitness. Did you dabble back in that again as an adult after university?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think. So I did go back to group fitness through my community center at first, and then kind of fell off that for a while. And then I think I was just not very active. I did a lot of walking, but not a lot of, and I have to say throughout my whole fitness journey, I have really neglected like strength training. I'm definitely like a cardio person. I love it. And strength training. And okay, this is a total misconception. And I listened to a podcast and I think I've heard Nikki say it, like, you're not going to get big by lifting weights. And I definitely thought that. So, for someone who was very body conscious, I was like, well, I don't want to look massive, so I'm not going to lift any weights. Stupid thought, like misinformed, definitely misinformed. So I didn't do any of that. But if I wasn't part of a formal gym, I did try to at least like walk. Never ran because I hate running. I hate it. Me too. I hate it. And and then I think, when was it? In my 30s. Yeah, before I had my son, I joined a large national gym chain and started group fitness again. And then the pandemic happened and that sort of shut down. and that
was the end of group
and
fitness.
That was it. Yeah, that was it.
Slowly making a comeback, thankfully. It's coming back in all sorts of forms, but yeah, it was that was probably one of the industry, within the fitness world, it took the absolutely massive hit. So it sounds like it got you in, it got you back. It seemed when it wasn't there was a bit of a drop off in the habit. So what is it about, and you mentioned about being able to go in and kind of hide in the corner, jokingly, and we've all done that. Although a lot of us end up then at the front of the room, eventually you get in the front row, and then some of them end up on the stage. So we kind of go through that, like it's like a journey of life through group fitness. But
you know what? It's funny that you say that, because I definitely did make a migration to the front, like right before the pandemic. Yeah. I was in the front. but
Yeah.
maybe because there weren't that many people in the class. But yeah, my confidence definitely improved, I would say, after a few years. So
Yeah. And that's everybody. And I did the same. I was kind of, I had my hand forced a little bit in the world of group fitness, which is ironic because, I've been teaching it for 20 years now, but I was that person. I'm like, oh, okay, fine. If you're going to make me in, I really want this job. And this job, part of this job is I have to teach on the schedule included in my shifts. And I reluctantly did it. So anyway, it was funny. And I moaned about it to my boss for 6 months every single day. And then here we are still doing it. So what else is it about the group environment, and that could take on many forms? Like we're talking about group fitness, so for anyone listening that maybe is not in that world, picture a strength class with dumbbells, or a Zumba class, or a cycling class on the bike. There's many forms and many different types, and we could talk about that all day long, but let's just picture a group of people in a room exercising to music. But also group, we talk about small group personal training, where it's not to music and it's a bit more the modalities are a bit more mixed up typically. So there's many different forms. But what is it about that environment that A, hooked you in, and B, kept you going back to that when you needed that kind of like reset, so to speak?
So the thing that hooked me in, like all joking aside, I think the thing that attracted me first to group fitness was the like anonymity that you could have with it. Like
Yeah.
you can hide, you can still get a great workout, but no one's like watching your form, or like you can definitely blend in. That's why I started. Where I am now is totally different. So now group fitness for me, and I don't know exactly, it's so funny. I never pay attention in the moment, but when I look back, so I don't know exactly when this happened, but the latest gym that I was a member of, that's where it first clicked in, like, oh, if I don't go today, I won't see so and so, and I haven't seen so and so in so long. Like, be nice to see them, or like, oh, if I don't go, like it'll look bad that I don't show up. Like, so that accountability came in. Not that anybody was like watching or monitoring, but almost like I wanted to show off how dedicated I was, which maybe isn't the best way to start, but I think maybe like, hey, why not? Like if that gets you there, then if that's where you're at that point, then go for it. But now it's more like with our small group training in the mornings and, on the weekends, it's like, oh, I want to see so and so. And I think that we have a really good group that are sort of kind of at the same level, so we can sort of push each other. And it's kind of neat working out with people that aren't in the same city as me, aren't in the same time zone as me. I never would have met the people in our classes if it wasn't for, well, your platform and for the pandemic. So yeah. So where I am now is very different. Like it's more um the accountability aspect of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a big part for a lot of people, right? It's having that, and you touched on having those people there that you've met and been able to kind of, come into your world, so to speak. That community element is huge. And so many people that went on that had group based exercise as part of their journey just looked for that so much when the pandemic started, because it was that, right? It was those things we didn't even think of. It's the accountability of knowing, oh, well, that person's going to be there. I want to be next to them in the class, or, working out with them online, and, they're holding you accountable, but you get the camaraderie of having everybody there, and that community feeling, which is just huge. And what we're truly trying to emulate in a digital world, which is quite frankly really challenging from a business standpoint, because when you know what it's like, and we've both Nikki and I have taught in that environment for many years, when you know what it's like and you know how it feels to be, this sounds really narcissistic, but when you're the center of that community, you're the center of the class and you've got everyone with you, when you know how that feels and you see how it makes other people feel, you're constantly striving for trying to create that in another way that's accessible for people. And group-based exercise is becoming more and more accessible in the world as we slowly work through this pandemic. But I think, in my opinion, it's never going to look exactly the same. So how do we find that new thing that maybe gives that community? And I think we've done a good job, but there's always that room to do better. And that's why these conversations are great, because it helps me learn as well as everybody getting to listen in. So
I always wonder how you guys deal with like teaching over Zoom or teaching online when everyone's muted and like you're talking and there's nothing coming back to you. Like, is it awkward? Like, it must be strange.
To be honest,
I try to wave and like give thumbs up, but it must not be the same.
It's different. Yeah. However, I think like everything in life, we have to adjust our expectation around things. And that's what we've had to do a lot of, which has been really hard because you used to. However, I've taught in many, many places over many, many years where it's not a lot different, to be quite honest. A lot of the time, people just stand there and this is not a judgment at all, because I get it and I've been there. And if I go and work out, I don't speak to anybody. And if I go to a class, I just stand there and I do my thing and I don't really interact and I don't talk to the instructor, because it's not me and who I am and the way I approach exercise. So everyone's different and that's okay. And I kind of made peace with that a long time ago, because I'm a bit of a people pleaser. So for me, I want everyone to tell me how great it is and that they love everything I'm doing and that they're having a good time. And when they stare at you like this, and you're not going to be able to see this if you're listening, but if you're watching, people are just deadpan.
Yeah.
Okay, next exercise, squat. We're very lucky that I get a fair bit of expression via the online platform from people, which is great. But yeah, you kind of make peace with not having that interaction. And if you go in expecting it, then you have a shitty time. So I learned a long time ago to go in and do what I want, just do what I need to do the best I can. And if you do get it, great. And if you don't, that's okay too. It doesn't mean, because it's always those people that look like they're having a terrible time that, 6 months later will come up to you and say, oh my God, I've never felt so good in my entire life. I was depressed and I was on, antidepressants, or I was, people say they were suicidal and like all these things, and you never knew. And then suddenly you're like, if I hadn't have found this class, I probably wouldn't be here today. Wow. And they're the person where you're like, why does they hate me so much? So,
that interesting narrative inside your own head telling a story that isn't actually true.
Absolutely. Aren't we good at telling ourselves stories? So it's super interesting. And it kind of makes sense that, you ended up being drawn into, a community environment where, it was group based. There was other people there to support you, where, you maybe you could hide a little bit, but not really, because I have everyone in a little square on the screen, so I can see you all. But it makes sense, right? That you find out what you're looking for eventually when you understand what's important to you.
Yeah. And it's a great, like the group. So before I started with the Nock Academy, I had not ever been in because group fitness is a little bit different than I think what we do, which is like group training, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah. So I had never been in like a group training environment. It was always the group classes where the instructor's doing it with you, and the classes tend to be a little bit larger.
Yep.
So what I really love and appreciate about our group training is that it's almost the best of both worlds. So the classes are small enough that you do, like, it's a little bit more, I don't know if intimate's the right word, but you feel a little bit more comfortable, like forming little, like, as much as we can, these little online relationships or, whatever. But at the same time, if you're not having a great day or a great morning, you can stay quiet the whole time and you can, just have your own little workout on your own. But yeah, it's a nice mix of the two. Like, it's a nice hybrid.
Yeah. And that's kind of what we talk to. We use the terminology training a lot because we believe that it is that training. Like, it's a little bit more prescribed and periodized exercise. It's coached and, form is corrected. And that's kind of a big thing of what we're about, because online, we look at online fitness in general, it's, 24/7, it's accessible. However, you don't have that somebody watching you, and you don't have that community of people. You just have the thing on the screen, right? So yeah, to your point, the group training it is definitely more intimate. You get a lot of the same people coming in. We have a fairly, it's a growing community, but it's enough that kind of everybody in there, and you get that. But also as well, to your point, that group kind of fitness, more of the class environment is very popular. And funny enough, we've added a few things on the schedule, as you've seen, because there's been so much demand for it, because people want that feeling back, right? I think they want to see me suffer. I think it's part of it. as well. But yeah, some things do translate very, very well like that. But it's a combination, right? We believe that the training and that kind of prescribed exercise is important to supplement all the other things, so you get the best of both worlds.
I should mention, also done the online on demand kind of workouts.
Yep.
Yeah, that didn't last very long. Like I was pretty good for a while, and then it was like, well, I was gonna work out this morning. Maybe I'll do it in the afternoon. Oh, maybe I'll do it after my kid goes to bed. Like, so it just didn't really work for me. Like
It's
that.
too easy not to sometimes,
Yes,
right? And if
exactly.
you don't have
And
that community and accountability, it's easy to slip off.
yeah,
Yeah.
and there's only so many of those different types of online workouts out there. So you end up repeating, like I would just end up repeating the ones that I really liked,
Yeah.
which didn't challenge me. Like I'm not growing doing that. I'm just doing the same thing over and over. And I think a couple times I might have even like kind of hurt myself, or like just like minor injuries, but just like straining or from not doing exercises properly because I didn't have that real time feedback, someone looking at me and saying, oh, put your shoulders back, or whatever else. So I see the role for it. I just don't yeah, it's not for everybody. It wasn't for me, I should say.
Yeah, no, for sure. And yeah, there's a certain amount of that internal kind of discipline and motivation that some people have to do those types of things. To your point, the injury thing's very important, and we do get a lot of minor things, like you said, but a lot of these things tend to be repetitive strain because, to your point, doing the same thing all the time, if it's too much impact, or it's too much cycling, or it's too much, I don't know, movements on the shoulder in a certain direction, whatever it is, there's so many of those things that we need to get that balance, right? And that's where that programming comes in, that we always have that and the understanding of that within programming. Because it's not to say that someone that records a video, for example, on YouTube, a fitness video, doesn't have that knowledge. What they don't have is the control over the people doing it, when they do it, and how often they do it, right? So important. But yeah, it's so I love what you said. There's reasons not to, and there's not, knowing I'm going to be there. And anyone that's listening that's a member will know that if you don't show up for a while, you get me by an email or a voice note or a quick message to say, oh, I didn't see you last week. What's going on? Do you need some help? Da, da, da. So no one can hide. No one can hide. Yeah. My goal is to keep the business at a size where I can still, we're going to call it professionally, we call it accountability. I call it harassing people to keep them on track, because I want to make sure that, is there something else you can do? Is there a way to make this more fun? What's your barrier? Like, talk to me. Is it life, or is it what we're doing? Or is it another factor that we can work on and get through, with our support? So yeah, I'm constantly on that. So, and that's a big part of what we do, right? It goes beyond the actual workout. So yeah, very, very important. Now, what I'd love to do is a few other things I want to talk about. Firstly, the role that exercise plays in your life, because I know there's going to be loads of people listening saying, if you don't go back to that, this is going to be a wasted episode. So what role does exercise play in your life now? And how does that, and we heard a little bit about the role it played, it was very much geared, like you said, in appearance and weight loss and controlling that. And, let's call it energy or weight management. So what role does it play now?
So now, kind of like I would say two roles. So I am aging, as is everybody else. This is one thing that everybody has in common. And I want to stay mobile and healthy as long as I can. So I already shared with you that physical activity was not a large part of my childhood, and my parents didn't really, what just wasn't part of their lifestyle. And I definitely see it now that they are a little bit older. That has a consequence, right? So they're aging. There are definitely people the same age as my parents who are out, walking, mobile, totally fine, healthy. That unfortunately is not the case for my parents. And so I have that little window into the future. And so I want to try and be around as long as I can, and not just be around as long as I can, but, be in my 70s or my 80s and still able to walk to the grocery store, or, go on a hike, or, just be healthy and be functional and mobile. So Long-winded way of saying, not so much a focus now on weight as health, right? So that's one role that fitness plays for me now. Probably a larger role though for me is definitely mental health. So everybody has anxious thoughts and anxiety. I feel like my anxious thoughts are on like a different level. They're just like a little, like maybe turn up a little bit higher. So, just from, not that this is a therapy session by any means, but just by, some things that I'm dealing with or have dealt with in my life, perfectionist issues and like over analyzing and overthinking, and same thing, people pleaser. I'm definitely a people pleaser. When I'm exercising and working out, that is definitely a time where, number one, I'm totally present in the moment. When you're sucking wind, you have no time to think about, oh my God, what does so-and-so think about me? Or what am I going to do when I get to work today? Like there's just no choice. And knowing that is possible, that total presence is possible during exercise, well, why can't I have that presence in other aspects of my life? So it's definitely opened up this freedom in a way, freedom from thought, like I'm free from thought during exercise. I can totally focus on me and what I'm feeling in the moment. Yeah, and if I can do that during exercise, why can't I do that when I'm washing the dishes?
Yeah.
Or, just going out for a walk in nature. It can turn my brain off. If I can turn my brain off during activity, I can turn it off anytime. So that was actually just a recent revelation that came to me the last couple of weeks. The total presence in the moment feeling that exercise gives me, and I love it. I love it.
Yeah. It's so true. And that will resonate with a lot of people listening, but specifically it resonates with me a lot too. Those anxious moments, that like busy brain, perfectionism. I'm working through my own journey, and a lot of that's linked to my childhood and growing up, and couple that with a similar journey to yours, being overweight as a kid, not having that structure and having that role model or that influence, I think paired in with some perfectionist traits that were kind of imprinted on me, didn't bode very well for me in my 20s. For a lot of the same, that yo-yo pattern from a mental health standpoint, from a physical standpoint, from a under-exercise, over-exercise, undereat, overeat, like it's that whole, took me 10 years to figure out some middle ground with that stuff, and another 10 years to figure out why. So here we are at 40, trying to, hopefully with a bit of life experience behind me. So I love to hear that. I love that it plays that role in, it's almost like it in the analogy is that when we exercise well and we do it for the right reasons, not for the right reasons, when we exercise well and we do it effectively and we do it balanced and we have a coach and a professional helping us, we get what is a very balanced, stable body that can perform and has longevity. Well, that's kind of like life and what we've just been talking about. I'm getting very, very deep right now, but life's the same, right? If we get that balance and we find that, either end of those extremes, and we live in what, is the gray of life, and without that perfectionism and without that extreme, is we get a stable, balanced approach, I guess. It's very similar, and your body's very much the same as that. So that's really nice to hear, and I know people will connect a lot with that.
And like oftentimes, and maybe it's because I didn't have a strong, I was never in team sports, like none of that growing up. So for me, like exercise and working out, like I can push myself and it's hard. And I feel like, especially when I work out in the morning, I love working out in the morning because it's like, if I can do that really hard thing in the morning, I can do anything. Like it sounds so cheesy, but I literally do have that feeling like I did something really hard. If I can do that, I can do anything. Like I can tackle my day. It's amazing the mindset that I can get into after having that morning workout,
Like you heard a really smart coach early in the morning say that to you after the most brutal workout once or twice, maybe, or maybe a few more times. you can do this one, you can do anything. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so true. And, a mindset for life, right? You get up and do the hard things early, whatever that is. And that might be exercise for some people. It might be many other things, but it's definitely a mindset for the day, and also energizes you, gets you moving, gets you that almost that, what you described, what was going through my head is almost like a meditative state, right? Where you're so focused and dialed into something that your brain can't really be busy. And I think
Yeah.
that's a good place to be, because it helps you kind of clear your mind first thing in the day. And then you can kind of use that that success that you've achieved in your workout to continue that cycle through your day. So yeah, really important. And I think if we dial into that, and like you said, there's no way to learn that stuff earlier, but if anyone's listening and is got exercise kind of in their day and their schedule as part of their life, and they're questioning if it's for the right reasons, start to think about those things, right? Like, how does this help me manage the day? How does this keep me doing what I do for longer, being healthier, being active, for whatever reason that is, right? Whether it's to excel at what you do as a career, is it to be around longer for your kids, whatever that looks like for you, because everyone's different. So I think that's really, really important. And what I'd love to, and I'm going to jump to the next thing because I'm also conscious of time. I want to find out a little bit more about how this whole journey, and it was fascinating to hear that. I'd never heard a lot of that. But I also had this feeling that we had this connection, and it makes sense because we're very similar in a lot of things with our journey and the way we approach things in life, it sounds like. So I'd love to know now, having heard that, where that kind of led you also in your career, because you touched on that earlier.
Yeah. So it is ironic. It is kind of funny that so had I would say not healthy relationship with food throughout my entire like teen. Like it's just gotten to I feel like in the past 5 years, my relationship with food has finally like balanced out. Where we're friends now. And so in my 20s, when I went to school, to university, I wanted to be a physiotherapist. I don't know why I wanted to be a physiotherapist. And I went through my first year of undergrad and like bombed. I did horrible and did not get the grades to go into physiotherapy. So in my second year, I was like, oh, okay, I'll just take a bunch of elective classes and, figure something out. And I took an introductory nutrition class and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I got a pretty good mark in it, which didn't hurt. So I did an undergraduate in nutrition. I did a master's in nutrition and I have a PhD in nutrition. So I went from to not knowing anything about food and what it does for you and how it fuels your body to like studying it intensely for many years. Yeah.
So it's so amusing, but it kind of makes sense as well. And this is a deeper question, but I'll just share my experience with it. Is we all kind of have a purpose in life, and acts of service is it for a lot of people, especially in service-based industries. So for me, it's definitely my experiences as a kid led me to this journey where can I pull down all these barriers and help other people navigate that. And it sounds like maybe without really knowing it, you ended up on that path too.
Yeah. And it's like, but even studying it for many years, I still didn't get what a healthy relationship with food is until like well after I was done school, because even in school it was like, well, no, energy in equals energy out, and calories and carbs and blah blah blah, and like the science of it. But yeah, that's one thing, but you have to put it into like the human perspective. And I think it's like nutrition and fitness are very similar in that respect. It's like you've got the science and like all the physiology and whatever else, but then you have to also weave in like the psychology and all of that too. So yeah, I knew the science of nutrition, but then to actually work it out, and even for like me personally, and I could probably tell people the basis of healthy eating and how to have a good relationship with food. I could tell them that, but up until not very long ago, I couldn't give that to myself, which is strange in a way.
No, makes complete sense. And going back to what I was saying about my journey, right? It takes you ages to figure that stuff out regardless of how knowledgeable you are. And and the science is fairly simple, right? People ask me that all the time. What's new in fitness? I'm like, nothing. Like, we still squat and lunge and push and pull, and we still have the same biomechanics that we had 100 years ago. It's making a difference. Nothing's new. Like, we're just packaging it up differently. Well, nutrition's the same, right? What's new in nutrition? Nothing. Carbs, proteins, and fats. Drink your water. Like, but it's not as simple as that, right? It is simple, but the application of it's different. You don't take into effect these very complex human beings that have, like we heard, all that shit from your whole life that has affected it, and everything that has been imprinted on us by the media, by our role models, by everything we hear and see and a witness of, is going to affect that. So that's where we have to be realistic, and we have to find ways to implement the facts. So first of all, we need to make sure it's facts that we're following, because there's a lot of stuff that isn't out there, as I'm sure that will drive you crazy in your world. So we need to dispel all the stuff that isn't fact, and then we need to find ways to implement that. And that's to be honest, what we're trying to do as well as a business, is trying to take the fundamentals, the things that we deem to be important, and implement them in a way that works for as many people as possible.
Definitely.
So interesting. Well, look, we're coming up on an hour, so I wanted to just, I guess, see if there's anything else you wanted to talk about, anything else you wanted to discuss. We're going to be talking about nutrition a whole lot more, not right now, but we're going to continue this conversation. But is there anything else you wanted to share for today's episode? Just kind of, about your journey, any kind of advice, anything, words of wisdom, or anything else you wanted to wrap up with?
I don't think so. I feel like it's hilarious. I didn't really think that. I was worried that I wouldn't have enough to say to fill in an entire hour, but that's obviously not the case. But
and here we are.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I don't know if I have any words of wisdom. Just, it's tough to say. Like, I feel like I'm thinking about myself as a 20-year-old, and if there was something that somebody could have said to me when I was that age that would have made me view fitness and eating in a different way. And I'm not sure that it would have, but just, yeah, maybe one thing that I think I already said before, just, tomorrow, don't beat yourself up. Tomorrow is another day. And that speaks for nutrition too, right? If you have what you would consider a bad eating day, it's fine. It'll balance itself out, like tomorrow is another day. Start again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think somebody made a post I saw the other day, which I love, which was, let's stop pretending that food has a moral value. And
yes, yeah,
isn't that such an important statement? I love that. Listen, Danielle, this has been awesome. I've personally loved to just find out a little bit more. It's hard when you run a business and you're exposed to so many people. You don't always get to find out everybody's journey, much like I have in years of personal training, where you really dig into that. So I always appreciate these conversations. I love that you didn't think you'd have anything to say for an hour. I knew, I said this to you before. I was like, you'll have plenty to say. I just know. And when we dig into those conversations and we start to kind of open up those those things in our life, it starts to paint a really clear picture, which is going to help a lot of people. So we appreciate you being a member of the Nock Academy, and just bringing your positivity to every single session, and every anything you've ever done within the within our platform, webinars and workouts and anything like that. You've always been in there, and you've brought your positive energy to it, which I really appreciate. So thank you.
The fist shaking, when you make us do burpee after burpee.
I consider that as positive. So
well, I want to say thank you too to you and Nikki for offering this. Like, it's just been it's been so great. I was a little bit bummed when because I was training with you in a different environment before, and that was coming to a close, and I was so sad, because I was like, I feel like I just found something that I really connected with. And then the Nock Academy came out, and it was like, yes, great, even better, even more wonderful.
Surprise.
So thank you for that, and thank you for the opportunity to come on and chat, because it is I don't get to see you in person, so it was nice to get a chance to sit down and to talk about my fitness journey and my relationship with fitness, because I probably wouldn't have talked about it with anybody else if I didn't have this chance. So thank you.
Well, now you've talked about it with the whole internet. So well done.
I know.
It's out there in the world. All right. That is where we're going to wrap the show up. Listen, everyone, thank you for tuning in and finding out another story. We love to get these long format, member stories, or what we like to call they're kind of our fight back against the the before and after pictures, and then really hear people's journeys and stories. So we appreciate you listening. If you got some value, you enjoy the episode today, please share it with someone you love and care about, and help us spread the word. The more people get these conversations, the more impact it's going to have, the more permission it's going to give to other people to do the same, and hopefully set people off on their fitness journey, reignite that fitness journey, or, maybe change the direction of it. So we appreciate you listening, and we will catch you on the next episode.